I think that a lot of Israelis were preparing for the worst. Hezbollah is basically an organization that has been holding a gun onto Israel's northern population, and I mean the entire Israel. We know that their capabilities to launch rockets on the center as well is quite concern for Israel. So I think a lot of Israelis were just waiting, holding their breaths to see what Hezbollah would do. But it's because of Israel's amazing work in the last 10 days to eliminate Hezbollah's capabilities. We haven't seen much of it. We have experienced three missiles from Yemen, from the Houthis, in the last week and a half. That many Israelis in the central had to rush into bomb shelters, millions of people, which was, I mean, of course, concerning. But I think we're a few days later, and Hezbollah hasn't done anything major. That tells you how bad they were hurt by Israel's strikes. Yemen is so far away from Israel. It's I mean, it's kilometers away that would take so long for planes. That's why they needed this refueling in the air to reach to, and it's not an activity that the IDF has taken before to get all the way to Yemen to strike the Houthis. But I think that this was a way of the IDF to reassure Israeli civilians after going through those missiles attacks from the Houthis, that Israel would do everything they can and reach anyone, no matter where they are, to protect its civilians. I think Israel had to do something like this, and I think it's also sending a message to the Houthis. The Houthis are they're like a free electron. They're doing what they want. There's no strategy. There's nothing from them that you can say, okay, that they've done this because of some reason. We know that they're part of the proxy of the Islamic Republic in Iran. Of course, they're supporting Hezbollah and Hamas and other terror groups in the region, but there's not really a smart strategy behind their attacks. So I think it was crucial for Israel to do something to deter them from acting again. Israel is fighting a war on 7 fronts, and the drone from today was a clear example of the attacks that we're continuing to see from sources in Israel that I've discussed it with just in the recent minutes. The drone was aiming into the gas resources of Israel, trying to explode them. So I think that is a reminder that the attacks on Israel are meant to destroy the country. It's not just attacks on military bases. In fact, it's not on military bases. We know that from Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, their goal is to reach Israeli civilians and kill as many as they can, as they've done on October 7th when 1,200 Israelis were killed by Hamas, and as they've done in August when 12 Israeli children were bombed to death by Hezbollah. And the Houthis, of course, are not only attacking Israeli civilians, they're attacking international ships that are going through their water. This is a threat not only for Israeli civilians, it's a threat to the entire free world. Israel has conducted several strikes against top Hezbollah leaders and Hamas leaders in Lebanon. The commander of Hamas in Lebanon, Fatih el-Sharif, was also killed in one of the attacks. The interesting thing is that this person that was known to be a Hamas commander in Lebanon, he was heading up Hamas's operations in Lebanon, and the collaboration of Hamas with Hezbollah. As I said, they're all proxies of the Islamic Republic in Iran. But the interesting part about Fatih el-Sharif is that he was also the principal of UNRWA that came to light. UNRWA, the United Nations agency that works for the Palestinian refugees, and he was the president of the UNRWA Teachers Union in Lebanon. So that was his, I'm not sure which one was the side job, but doing both of those things, both being a UN staff, a humanitarian organization staff that is head of schools and head of teachers union, but also an active terrorist, not only low-level terrorist. It was the commander of Hamas in Lebanon. Hezbollah has already announced a new leader. They're trying to regroup. The Islamic Republic in Iran is also sending support, and they don't want to lose this strategic asset that they have. When you think about the Islamic Republic in Iran, they haven't really attacked Israel had confrontationally in any way. They have those proxies that are doing it for them, and they knew that Hamas would be the aggressive attacking dog for them in this fight, and Hezbollah was always out there as a leverage and as a way to hold Israelis hostage as well, and to make sure that Israel would not feel that they can just abandon the north as they've done and shot all those rockets and missiles on Israel. So the work against Hezbollah is not done. Israel has to do what it can to eradicate this terror group. It has an opportunity now that we never had before to go on and to make sure that Hezbollah would be completely eradicated. And by the way, it's not just Israelis that are happy about this elimination of the capabilities of Hezbollah. It's also minorities in Lebanon. If you think about the Jews, LGBTQ people, the Syrians that were part of the victims of Hezbollah. Hezbollah has supported the Assad regime. It's one of the wealthiest terror groups in the world, but also one of the cruelest terror groups. Hezbollah was led by a cruel, evil man, Nasrallah, that wanted to do everything he can to oppress people. So it's important that Israel would do everything they can to not allow Hezbollah to regroup and to get back on its feet. And it will be for not only for Israel, it will be also for the best interest of Lebanon right now. My hope is that Lebanon would start taking over the south, send the Lebanese army to take over the south of Lebanon. Hezbollah has terrorized Lebanon as well. They terrorized politicians. They assassinated politicians that they didn't like. They really controlled Lebanon behind the scenes and turned Lebanon into this state within a state that was run by Hezbollah that really harmed the country. So my hope is for a better future for Lebanon. I think it can only be done if Hezbollah would completely be eradicated. It's going to be difficult, and it's going to take much more than just the strategic airstrikes that Israel has conducted that are, again, achieved remarkable results. There's no precedent to sort of targeted airstrikes that are just with Nasrallah's elimination, there was only 6 people that were hurt in this strike. So I think it's really remarkable to see how precise those strikes are, but they will not be enough. Israel knows that while the leadership was completely eradicated, I mean, if you think about it, any Hezbollah leader that had a pager meant that it was important enough to have a pager, and they're all now either injured or killed. So there's really no leadership right now that was prepared to take over. But there is a lot of arsenal of weapons, and I think that's important that for Israel to target those weapons and to look into. I mean, I think going in with maneuvering in southern Lebanon would probably be necessary as well. But it's all part of what Israel is considering. But yeah, it's a serious threat that we know that once Hezbollah would be able to regroup, if they will, I hope they won't, it will go back to the same pattern of launching rockets on a daily basis on Israel. And there's over 60,000 Israelis that have been displaced from the north. They can't go back to their home for over 11 months. Israel has the responsibility to ensure safety for those people to be able to go back to their homes. And it can only be done if Hezbollah is stopped. We're about to mark this important date in a few days, and I think it's just going to be very hard for Israelis. And I think that if we're talking about Hamas's capabilities in Gaza have been almost completely eradicated in the sense that they have almost no military power as they had before. Sinwar's fate is still unknown. Yesterday, the chief of staff gave a briefing with a picture of Hamas's leadership behind him with a question mark on Sinwar's face, which I think was a suggestion, maybe trying to hint that even the IDF thinks that his fate might not be he might not be alive. I think that Hamas has changed completely from October 7th. And I think what's important right now in Gaza is to figure out a plan for the day after. Hamas has been destroyed. The question is, what will be coming in its place. And I think that Israel would be smart to work with other ally countries in the region to figure out a plan for Gaza that will not involve Hamas. We also had a report coming this week that, or last week rather, that Hamas was open to having the Palestinian Authority leading the Gaza Strip, which is a good, a good possibility, but I think it's not the best one because we know that the Palestinian Authority is susceptible for Hamas's control. So it really will take some sort of plan that will involve other countries for Gaza, but it can't be that Hamas stays in any way in control of Gaza.